Hi, friends. Welcome to the Mobile Bev Pros podcast, a podcast dedicated to providing mobile bar and event professionals with the information they need to succeed. I'm your host, business coach, and founder of the Mobile Bar Academy, Sarah Murphy. In each episode, the Mobile Bev Pros team will bring you industry experts, information, anecdotes, and opinions with the goal of assisting you in building a profitable, sustainable, and successful business that supports you in creating wealth. I'm excited to share with you today's episode, so let's get started.
Hello, Mobile Bev Pros fam. We today are talking about selling as a service rather than how most entrepreneurs see it until they have made this advancement or this evolution as an inconvenience. We see a lot of people who are hesitant to follow up. They are hesitant to email market in a powerful way or even to social media market in a powerful way, because they don't want to be cocky. They don't want to toot their own horn. All of these are coming with quotation marks. They see themselves as being too pushy or too overbearing. They don't want to inconvenience people or get on their nerves. And so they shrink and they expect to just have a social media that sometimes posts. They don't want to post too much. They expect to have an email marketing platform or a CRM through which they can communicate with their audience, but only sometimes. I'll send out a weekly newsletter. Or if someone reaches out and inquires about a service, what we see is people will respond once and say, "Hey, thanks for reaching out. Here's some more details." And then they get ghosted. And usually, right then, they assume they didn't want to hear from me. Right then, they assume, well, if they were interested, they would have responded, they would have booked. Sometimes you'll get people who are like, I follow up 3 to 5 times, and that's just costing you so much money. That mentality is costing you the success that you know is possible for you. It's costing you the confidence that you know is possible for you. It's costing you the brand authority that's available to you in your immediate area and potentially on a larger scale for those of you who work in multiple cities or have social media influence or even have different businesses. Maybe you're not a mobile bar owner listening to this. Having authority is respecting people's boundaries, but also respecting their sovereignty enough to establish those boundaries. That's a fine line, and it's one we're going to talk about today.
We see this show up a number of different places. Low-hanging fruit, obviously, is the follow-up. Someone drops into your lead form, they're in your inbox, and how persistently are you showing up after you know they exist and you know they have a problem that you can help them solve? The other places that we see this, though, are also in seeking reviews or feedback or testimonials, where if you ask at all, which many of our clients come into our programming without having a standard process or ritual around asking for testimonials or feedback, then they ask once and then they disappear and they figure, well, if they wanted to, they would. The other place that we might see this is in the request for information that you need to do your job as a mobile bar owner. And so they'll ask or they'll send an email or a text asking a question to a client, and then potentially the client won't respond with enough detail, or maybe they won't respond at all because they're busy, got lost in their inbox, whatever that looks like. And then suddenly they're like, well, how do I navigate not having this information? Maybe I'll just make a best guess. Or maybe I'll assume this is what they meant by that, because there just isn't that confidence in gaining clarity or in that, hey, I need this information. And then if you don't give me this information, this is how this will work, right? And they're too squishy. And so sometimes we'll see people that are like, well, I asked for it 10 days ago and, I've had to remind them a couple times, but like the event's tomorrow. So what do I do? Which, like, at the point in which they asked for that information, they could have been clear, and this is the information I need. This is why I need it. And if I don't get it, this is what you're going to have to live with, right? Sitting in your seat of power and saying, I need this information to do my job. This is what I need it by. And if I don't get it, I will operate with these assumptions. All of that, it all boils down to a power dynamic, which you and I, that's where we live. We love to talk about power dynamics in business and in life, specifically from the premium lens. The mobile bar has the power in the engagement. They hired you for your expertise. Show up that way in all communications. That means understanding that they came to you because they had a problem that you could solve, and they're willing to spend money to do that. But then once they spend that money, or even in advance, they need to know that you are trustworthy with their investment of both money, but also that you can do the job that you said that you would do, and you do it in a way that they've asked you to do it. And that requires you standing up powerfully. And so when someone drops into your lead funnel and you send them a proposal, a brochure, or whatever that looks like, and they don't respond because they're busy, and then you don't follow up powerfully, then they go away. You don't get that money. The lead follow up is an opportunity to really share how you can best support them, why they should choose you. It's an opportunity to really show up in your power from the seat of service. And that's, I think, where we have always come from when we teach sales, is that you're being of service. They need what you have. That's why they came to you to begin with. Instead of being, to your point earlier, very submissive and like, oh, I don't want to inconvenience. I don't want to send too many emails. I don't want to feel annoying. And honestly, we do sometimes get people that are like, stop emailing me, take me off your list. Just, you email too much. To which we're like, yes.
And my favorite thing about those emails is that we'll get an email from somebody who's been on the list for 3 years, and they're like, you email me too much. And they've never spent a dime with us. You're right, we do email you too much. Listen, here's the thing, guys. The people who are annoyed when you follow up were never your ideal clients anyway. Okay, we had a conversation with a client the other day about a power dynamic that I think is a good metaphor for this, where she was showing up in a way for her family that was very people pleasing. And she'll show up out of obligation to these gatherings, and she will show up as a smaller version of herself to avoid starting confrontation, to avoid creating friction, when all that's doing is she's not being her true self, and her family then can't get to know her true self. And when we dug and we were like, why? What we found is because they wouldn't like her very much. And in fact, if she was being completely honest, she doesn't really like them very much. And oftentimes we see that in client relationships as well. We are sacrificing who we truly are, our power, our sovereignty, our genius, to work for clients that we don't align on values with, that we don't really see eye to eye with, that we knew were going to be a pain in the ass from gate. Usually we hear is like the red flags are like, I kind of knew it was going to show up this way. And what we want you to do is to nip all that shit in the bud, be authentic and powerful in how you come out of the gate, so that you're turning enough people off that you can turn enough people on. Prerequisite to having the resource of people's attention is that 50% of your audience isn't going to like you. That's required. And so if you're coming out in business attempting to be liked, you will be liked and you will be unsuccessful.
I would even say 50% is too many, right? Because riches are in the niches. Niches means you found your people, and those people, all the things. They like your sense of humor. They like the way that you approach systems. My favorite example here is when we did everybody's astro charts at Brew, and we came to find out that the vast majority of people had their moon in Virgo, which is my sun sign. So like the things that I teach, all the nerdy stuff, all the ways that I process information and that I deliver it, the Virgo moon eats that up. They just absolutely love it. And like that's a niche, right? When we're talking, if you want to talk specifically to a niche, Virgo moon. And so turning 50% of people off might not be enough. You got to go harder. You got to be more you, because you want people to become so enamored that they're a hell yes. They like what you're offering. They like the way that you sell it. They like what you're saying about it. They like the way that your brand looks and feels in their body. They're totally in love and enamored with you. And that requires the vast majority of people not liking you and not necessarily hating you. We don't necessarily need to get there, but you're not their cup of tea. And that's okay, because like you're peppermint tea, and like not everybody likes peppermint tea. When you are developing your follow-up strategy, when you're developing you, and I mean that for all the things, you want to be authentically you. You want to be clear and transparent about what you offer, the problems that you solve, and you need to just keep going until you get a no. You used to be like this one client, and it was like, 8 follow-ups before. I think we have a new record here that you could share with everybody that's like, wow, okay, maybe I am giving up a little too early.
Yeah, I like to say that there are a million reasons why your potential client is no longer responding to you. None of those mean that you should stop messaging them unless they say, please stop messaging me. Like, that's the only of the million reasons that they're not saying anything back to you. The only one that should lead you to think they no longer want to hear from me. And this is how we respect people's sovereignty. This is how we hold power and we allow other people to hold power. When I'm doing follow up work, generally, I'm going to keep pushing until I get a please stop emailing me. I give opportunity for that. I will, in my emails, say, if you've decided to go another way, let me know and I'll take you off my follow up list. And if they don't, it means some part of them still wants to hear from me. Okay. And so sometimes I have really great conversations with people. There's one person in the inbox right now who I'm having a great conversation with, and they've ghosted me for the last 9 emails I have sent. But we were having a great conversation. Okay. And I'm not going to let that die. And here's why: I would do a disservice to them. That person wants to make more money. That person looked to us and said, they have something I need. They have an expertise that could increase my annual income, and I need that. And so for me to just drop off would be doing them a disservice, because like, you want this. So recently we closed a high ticket client. That high ticket client took a whopping 28 emails to close. Now, some of those emails were responded to, but over 50% of them got no response. And in fact, several of the responses in that thread were, this is too expensive. If you lower the price, we'll jump in right now. To which I just said, hey, thanks so much for reaching back out. If the price is an issue, you can do a monthly payment, right? I did not say, sure, we'll discount. Some of those were, it's just not the right time for us. Some of those emails were, well, we're looking at other coaches in the industry. And at no point did I bow and say, like, oh, well, we're better than them because we da. No, I allowed our presence and our expertise to speak for itself. Remember that in a power play, you want me. I'm the prize. As a mobile bar, you came to me. A lot of mobile bars, you're staying at the bottom, and it's because you think the client is the prize. The whole purpose of what we're teaching is for you to lean back and say, I'm the prize. And guess what? The prize doesn't discount. The prize doesn't send, hey, just following up to see where we're at. No, we take the just out. We say, hey, I'm bumping this back up to the top of your inbox because you said it was important to you. That's powerful. 28 emails, over 50% of them were not responded to. Multiple times I was given different obstacles, different hurdles. It's not the time for me. I'm looking at other coaches. It's too expensive. And in all instances, I held my ground. Now, I believe that client converted from the depths of my soul because I stayed in my power. Because at any point, they gave me all the opportunities to bow, and I did not. That doesn't mean that I'm overpowering them either, right? So a lot of times, like, if we don't have a good understanding of what healthy power dynamics look like, we see it as bully victim. And that comes out as like, I'm in charge, now you're subservient. Or, oh, they're in charge, now I'm subservient. Both of us can hold an immense amount of power, and that's the only way we create incredible relationships. You following up and saying, just checking in, is not powerful. Starting your emails with, sorry for the inconvenience, or I don't want to bother you. You're basically just you're saying, hey, please buy my thing, sir. Please buy this from me, right? And we don't want that. We want you to be the sexiest, most magnetic thing in the room. And that is likely not the person begging. And so even though I'm in their inbox, I'm not begging for their attention.
It's super subtle. If I was to reach out to a venue, for example, cold outreach, and being like, hey, this is who I am, what I do, how I serve. I'm part of this community. It's amazing how vast and varied, like your venue's amazing. I'm making that connection with them, right? And so if I then proceeded to email them every day for 21 days, they would have everything in their right to be like, you're annoying and please stop emailing me. I did not ask you to be here. And I think sometimes people show up to those lead funnel conversations the same way, as if like they're doing us a favor by being here. And so I want to point out the fact that like there is a time and a place. And so if you're doing the outreach, do be cognizant of people's time. Do be cognizant of not being noise to others. But if they have come to you, it's because they have a need and they think that you're suited to support them. That's where you need to hold them in their power, in that you said you needed this. And I get to stand in my power. I'm uniquely suited to help you with that. Or I'm actually not a great fit for this, which is another piece of the process that we need to attend to, is that in some cases, what you offer is not going to help them solve their problem or do it in the way that they want it done. And you need to be honest about that too. Because if you don't and you aren't, then that's manipulation. The outcome of that is not going to be good for anybody. But having a good understanding of yourself, who you are, what you do, how you serve, what you're willing to do, what your boundaries are, how you do it, what your pricing is, and like the reason for your pricing, right? So like we know what the reason is for our pricing. So there's really no reason for us to discount unless we want to, if we have our own agenda there. But to do it just because we want to make a sale, no, we're not interested in that, because we know what we have to offer. Just like all of our mobile bars, if you've done your pricing based on math and you have a good understanding of why you charge what you charge, then just because you're too expensive for someone doesn't mean that you're too expensive. It just means that they cannot afford you, and that's okay. You got to hold them in their power. And okay, you're not willing or able to afford what we're charging for the same experience that others are charging less for, then we think that the best move for you is to choose someone that you can afford and deal with whatever experience comes with that investment.
And I've seen this show up one of two ways. The first one is we've had people who have come in and said, well, I'm hesitant about the investment because it's just a lot of money for education or for what you're teaching, and I can get it cheaper. To which I'm always like, awesome, go do that. I would love to point out to people that, like, when you are looking out into the world and saying it's too expensive, then you get to look at the reflections in your world and ask yourself how often people are coming into your inbox and telling you that you are too expensive. Okay. Because we don't get that often. Most of the time, people come in, they don't even talk to us, boom, 2 grand. Like they just pay for it. You know what I mean? From gate. But sometimes we get the guy who's like, there are other people who are doing this cheaper. Cool. There are other people doing mobile bar services cheaper than you. Have fun with that mentality. And that does one of two things. When I hold that power in that way of like, cool, there's no desperation, there's no attachment. And that makes things wildly attractive. And so one of two things will happen. One, they go off and they work, they do the cheaper thing. And then a year later, they're in the accelerator and they're like, wow, that was awful. I should have just done this first. Or they sit with that and they go, wow, this is wildly attractive. She doesn't need this sale. She's not, trying to convince me of her worth. Now, this is a subconscious play. It's not a conscious thing that they're sitting there and they're thinking like, oh, she didn't say no. But unconsciously, they're like, she doesn't need me. That didn't work. She wasn't willing to throw me a bone. And then they join anyway. It was like, I thought it was too expensive. You know what I mean? And like, you've told this story on here before about the people who were like, you went round and round. They had a pretty high ticket. I think it was a wedding with you, with Bar Magnolia. And they were like, it's going to be too expensive. We're actually going to go a different direction. And you were like, all right, well, best of luck. And then they swing back and they're like, actually, we're going to add on 3 grand worth of like glassware. And can you still do this? Right. And so, like, when people say to you, it's too expensive, what they're saying is, I haven't justified the value. Now, at MVP, we've done a great job of communicating our value. So when people say to me, it's too expensive, I'm not insecure because we do a great job of demonstrating our value. So that's what you got to check first. If people come to you and they say it's too expensive and you get insecure, have you done all you can do to demonstrate your value? If the answer is yes, it's not going to land. They're going to say it's too expensive. You're going to be like, for you. And that's what we do. It's too expensive. I say, for you. And then magically people find money, or they don't and they go have a cheaper experience.
I also want to caveat that we tend to work with a lot of people, and I'm raising my hand here, that feel like they have to continuously increase what they're offering in order to feel good about the value. And then when you get people that are like, oh, it's too much, you're like, but look at like all the how can you not see all the value that we've thrown? Literally everything in the kitchen sink is in this package. And like, yes, it's, a little bit more than them, but they're not offering this. They're not offering this. Their package. I've even heard some people that are like, someone said they could get it for cheaper. I asked them to send me what the other person's quote was so I could see exactly what was included and what wasn't. Like you've already lost the war when we get to that point, because what they're telling you is that despite throwing everything in the kitchen sink, they do not see value in what you're offering. And that's not a you thing. It's like, yes, we want to demonstrate and communicate things that are of value to people, right? And again, this goes back to like your ideal client. Like, what are you offering? What's the transformation that you are offering people? You need to be able to properly market that and message that. But if you're continuing to add new things to something to make it more valuable, to make it justify the rate, I'm going to use photography, for example, just because I feel like it's on brand for the events industry, but also is largely intangible. Okay. In that, we're looking to redo brand photography. So I'm getting a bunch of quotes. And all of these are really talented photographers. I wouldn't have reached out unless their portfolio is kind of yummy, right? Some are coming out and they're like, $750 is my session fee. And others with a very similar portfolio, like minimum of $3,000 session fee, all of these things. It's up to me to decide what I value, but the services that are offered are largely the same. And so anything that you're saying, like, this is what it's cost, someone else is going to charge twice as much and they're going to book the events at twice as much, merely because they're communicating. And it might, and again, photography is literally just photos and like some prints, like digital photos, some editing, some prints. It's all around the value proposition, but we don't need to fill we don't have to like increase the number of things. We just need to make sure that the things that are included in what we're offering is what that person values. When we have packages that include things like cups and trash bags and garnishes, like, I can assure you the premium buyer expects that stuff. They don't value that stuff. And so what are we valuing at that point? It's the experience, it's the memories, it's the legacy. They're valuing not what you're putting in that package. And so be careful when you talk about value, or when someone is like too expensive. It's almost never the value that you're offering in the package. It's maybe the way that you're messaging it. But be honest with yourself, is like, what exactly are you selling? Because it's not garnishes. It's not cups and napkins. It's not bartenders. It's not any of that. That's not what you're selling.
What I will say is that anytime we're having a conversation about value, my inner metaphysician, who's mostly outer these days, just like pops all the way out. We got to talk about this. If you struggle to value yourself, you will have a very hard time holding and understanding your value as a business, because your business is an entity that you have cast outside of the self. So it's much like motherhood. Like, you're not your child, but also it looks just like you and it has a lot of your attitude, right? You made that. And it's pretty clear that you made it. Your business is just like that. It's cast outside of yourself. And if you struggle to hold yourself sacred, if you struggle to value yourself, if you don't value your time, if you find yourself chasing odd and end jobs just to make a dime without taking into consideration your values, your boundaries, your time, right? How many people, they'll send you their pricing sheet and you're like, I don't see your labor here. What? You know what I mean? What?
Yeah.
And
They'll
so
be like,
that's
oh, I'll just work that event. Oh, so you work for free now?
right, right. And so we make ourselves then slave to the business. You see, and so we're undervaluing ourselves. And so if you're undervaluing you in your day-to-day life, and that looks a number of ways, there's 1,000 ways that people undervalue themselves, then there's something deeper that's going to keep you from holding the line when people question the value of your business. Because every time someone questions the value of your business, you're going to get triggered because it feels personal. It feels like they're questioning your value. And technically they are, because you haven't established a line of self-security that then bleeds out into the business, right? I'll give you an example. I write blogs for MVP, and I love to write blogs for MVP. You could not pay me enough to write a blog anywhere else. Anywhere else in the space. There are people on Upwork who write blogs for $15 an hour. There are people on Upwork who write blogs for $450 an hour. I can tell you that if you wanted me to write a blog, it's going to be a 4-figure investment, but it's a huge inconvenience and I don't want to do it. And so, like, the amount of money I'm charging is equal to the pain in the ass that it is for me every time. And sometimes I know my limits. It's too much of a pain in the ass for you to even pay me to do it. I just don't want to do it. It's going to breed resentment. And that's hard on my nervous system, honey. We cannot have that. Like, absolutely not.
100%. We see people in what Don Bransuela lovingly referred to as the season of yes. And that's usually when they first start their business, they aren't sure exactly who they're going to be yet, what they want to offer, how they want to message it, who they want to message it to. And like, that's a sacred space. I give a lot of guidance to people as to what they should, what they shouldn't do, how it should look, how it shouldn't look, what works, what doesn't work. And yet there's this space in my heart that I'm like, go off, take all the events, take the events that suck, the events that are great. Like, because some of this is really being like forged through the fires. And only after the season of yes are you going to know what you want to do, what you don't want to do. And people who go through the season of yes are so much better prepared to pivot into premium because they have come to an inner understanding as to how much work this industry is. And while they were willing to do it for peanuts when they first started, they are not willing to do it for peanuts any longer. The challenge and the shift they need to make is how to consistently book people in the premium space who value what they do. And that's where we help people say, stop doing this, start doing that. The messaging then gets tightened up and they're able to sit in their seat of power from a confident position in that I don't want this event, or I want this event, but not so much that I'll grovel for it. And sometimes in order for people to get to that place, they have to have been burned over and over and over again during the season of yes. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, no, I got into this because I love to serve people. I want to meet people where they're at. If there's a drink at that event, I want to make it happen. If they have a budget, I want to figure out how to navigate that budget and give them what they need with that in that budget. And I'm just here to, make it easy or affordable for people to have bartenders at their event. Like I super love what I do. Amazing. I love that. And the market needs that. And what you'll find is you will get pushed around a lot. And maybe that's okay. If that's not okay, then everything that we're saying here is going to tighten up the people who pay you. You're going to get less of the people that treat you like your support staff, but more as a partner in that we're executing this event and I need your expertise to ensure that this piece of the event goes without a hitch. They will trust your decisions more. They'll trust your guidance more. They'll listen to what you say. They'll get you stuff by the due dates and the timelines that you ask them to get those things because you have demonstrated that you own that section of the experience and you are the king, queen of that domain, and they are borrowing and hiring your expertise there. All of that expectation and authority starts at the very beginning when they first drop into your lead form. Sometimes even before that, if they've engaged with you on social medias or they stumble upon your website through Google search, that's all kind of pre-awareness stage. But once they drop in, you need to take those reins. A conversation we recently had on an Academy Q&A coaching call was this point wherein they land in the lead form. What you ask on the lead form is the very first time that you're in charge. And so we had some people that are like, oh, but I get people through Zola and I get people through the Knot. And like, how do I respond to them if we're not going back and forth with emails? And I said, you send them to your lead form. And they're like, oh, but they're already in the Knot and already, no, they go where you tell them to go because you're in charge here. You need that information in order to get them the information they want. So tell them where to get it. Go to the lead form, fill it out, and now we have a process. The power dynamic there starts at the very beginning. But once they recognize you have your stuff together, you know what to ask and how to set them up for success, they can entrust you with the rest of it. But if they're dropping in your lead funnel and then you have to like schedule a call or you need to ask them additional questions after you've already asked them additional questions on their lead form, that's giving, okay, they don't even know what they need to know in order to give me the pricing or the information that I need in order to decide whether or not this is a good fit. So when we talk about power dynamics, that means you have to be entrusted. You have to trust yourself, and you have to demonstrate to the client that you know what you need in order to serve them and support them the way that they want to be supported in this endeavor. And 99% of the people that are going to drop into your inbox have no idea. They don't know. They don't know what you need to know. They don't know what they want, even. They don't even know what the options are, generally. They've never done this before. They've never had a mobile bar. They've never planned a bar experience at the level or scale that they are trying to do for this event. And not everybody, obviously, some people have done it before, but most people don't, right? And so just by them coming to you and doing the little contact us form, they are basically being vulnerable and they're saying, I need support here. I need help. And the more powerfully you're able to say, I got you, not just through words, but through the actions and the asking the right questions and being able to support them in, telling them this is what you need for that. Not, don't let them tell you what they need. I saw this came through in a Middle Tennessee wedding group yesterday. A woman was like, I need 2 bartenders for my event on this date and for this many people. You don't know what you need, because it would highly depend on the rest of that experience as to whether or not 2 is enough. Maybe you want 2 bartenders because there's 2 bar stations. Well, I'll tell you, that's 3. You need 3 bodies for that. To meet my standards, you can't tell me what you need. I'm going to tell you what I need in order to hit my standards at this event. Right. And that's the subtle shift here, is that from the very first encounter, you're taking control over how this goes, what they need to know, what you need to know from them. And that includes, the way that you end emails. Back in the day, we did a podcast with Alan Berg, who's written entire books on like not being ghosted and the wedding industry and that sort of thing. And he, at that point, recommended every email end in a question. That's gold right there, right? Because it's telling them we're going to continue this conversation. Right? We're going to continue this conversation. Now they can choose, of course, they're sovereign beings, not to respond, but that in not responding is an invitation for me to send another email.
When he said that, I immediately implemented it. And my favorite thing to ask at the end of my emails are, what are your thoughts? Now, if you have, like, if the conversation's going differently and there's a natural question that comes that you can ask that one. But if you're like, they asked for more information and I sent it to them, how can I end that email powerfully? I like the phrase, what are your thoughts? The other thing that I'll say here is that you have to, in your follow-up, when you're reaching out to people, if I have asked you multiple times, what are your thoughts? Did you see my last email? Bumping this back to the top of your email box. Hey, you said you wanted this, but I haven't heard back from you. Is there something keeping you stuck? Do you have more questions? All of those are great opportunities for that person to say something. And I take none of it personally, because there is a good chance that's a working mom. She's juggling 14 children and 3 jobs, and she's trying to start this business. And every time she opens her phone, she just wants to blank out and scroll social media for a minute. She doesn't want to think. She doesn't want to ask herself bigger questions. And I have to hit her with the right email at the right time to get that response. And so that's why I say there's a million reasons, guys. Like, how often do you guys get distracted from your phone? How often are you just like, I'm in line to pick up my kid and I'll just open my phone and there's something in there, but you literally don't have capacity to respond at that moment. And then you just completely forget about it. Now you're cooking dinner and like, right? And so you want to be following up with the recognition, one, you're not getting on their nerves. Unless they say to you, this is getting on my nerves, at which point, cool, now I know. But also, it's not going to change my follow-up game moving forward. This is another thing that I teach a lot when we do like metaphysical work, is that like if somebody says like that's annoying, it might hurt. It might bruise a little bit. Does it determine how I'll move forward? That's the difference of holding in integrity. If someone gives you feedback and it's not valid or justified, sure, it might hurt. Do you use it to inform your future actions? Because if you do, now you've like made yourself less than. You're not holding yourself sacred. You don't have your own back. Instead, let it hurt. Oof, they said I was annoying. Drop it in the Telegram when you're in the accelerator and be like, guys, look at this. They said I was annoying. That hurts so much. And then you keep doing follow up. Okay. Like you just keep at it. Recognize that as a human, you are going to have feelings. Recognize that like having the resource of people's attention comes at the cost of a lot of them not liking you. And that's going to hurt sometimes. Letting it inform your decisions is where authenticity starts to break down. That's where we have self-sacrifice, a lack of integrity. That's what we don't want.
Little anecdote here. My daughter was on a field trip, and it was her first field trip ever. She's 11, almost 12. And she came back, and when you're with people, the same people from your class for 5 days on end, like things gonna happen, right? Things are gonna be said. And she shared with me what was said. And I was like, oh, I honor that. That's kind of hurtful. Do you want to keep that? Is that feedback that you feel like it resonated? Is there any change that you want to make based on that feedback? Or do you think maybe they get to keep that perception and you don't have to associate with it? And she was like, they can keep it. I don't think I am that way. And I think the same goes for this feedback. Just because someone's going to say something doesn't mean it doesn't bruise, but you can consciously decide, do they get to keep that feedback? And so when we get people that are like, you email too much, we let them keep that feedback. And a matter of fact, I think at one point you might even had responded back to them. That was like, when we increased the rate of the emails that we sent, we realized X number of increase in revenue. Would sending more emails benefit your business, right? And like the proof is in the pudding for us that emails convert the way that we do it. And the right people stay on our list. And a matter of fact, we've had people leave the mobile bar industry and ask, is there anywhere else we can follow along with your emails? We don't have a mobile bar anymore, but we don't want to stop hearing from you. And like, that's when you know that, you're hitting your ideal people.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to give you guys a little nugget of gold here. People are always and only communicating from their own perceptions of the world. And so if Tiffany's gave a shit that I thought their $800 paperclip was too expensive, they would no longer be in the luxury space. I don't care that much about paperclips. That's a me thing. Do I value an $800 paperclip? I do not. I got a whole jar of golden paperclips from Amazon for like $4. You know what I mean? And so like it might not even been $4, right? And I now have a plethora of them, okay? And so we have to recognize that, like my dad used to say, I'm going to say it. My dad used to say opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one and most of them stink or something like that, which is always like, ugh, like my dad's an old country guy. You know what I mean? Like old country, old Appalachian oracle, that man. And he says some things. It's so gross, but it's true. That's a true statement. Everybody has an opinion and they're going to voice it, especially in today's day and age, right? Like social media is just everybody's opinions on everything. And the thing is that like you get to decide, is that my perception? When you raise your prices, people are going to say that's too expensive. You get to look and say, does that mean my messaging is off because I'm in front of the wrong audience? Or does that mean nothing about me and everything about them? If they're coming to your inbox and they're like, you email me too much. Okay, to your point, I said back to the lady, do you make 80% of your revenue via email? Because we do. I mean, you could too. And so you get to look and see, like, is that their insecurity being thrown at me? And more often than not, it is. If you have a soft spot there, if you're insecure there, it's going to land. I always use the example when I work with women in relationships. I'm like, okay, if I come to you and I'm like, you are a pumpkin pie, does that bother you? And they're like, nah, no, it doesn't. I'm like, okay. Do you see that that's because you have no previous association with pumpkin pie? Right? Like there's no insecurity that you might actually, in fact, at some level, be an ooey gooey pumpkin pie. And they're like, yeah, I can see that. I'm like, if I come to you and I say, you're a bad mom, and they're like, oh, that lands. I'm like, all right, tell me about your relationship to motherhood. And more often than not, what I hear from them is they don't feel like a good mom. And so then when people say that to them, it makes them question themselves. Okay, then the work isn't to have your husband stop calling you a bad mom or your mom stop calling you a bad mom or whoever it is. The work is to make sure you feel secure in being a good mom or having high prices or your messaging or your marketing or your niche, whatever it is. Make sure you're secure. And then when people call you pumpkin pie, it doesn't land.
When we do this work with our clients, they sell more. And that's ultimately what we want people to recognize, is that being powerful in your follow-ups as a service, they said they wanted these things, and you are uniquely suited to provide those things, increases revenue. And it's not just in following up, it's in following up powerfully. It's in following up with information that they need in order to help them make the decision. It's in following up with messaging that's on brand so that they are maintaining trust in the overall brand voice and persona, so that they're not getting, different versions of you throughout the entire dance through your relationship together. And if you do that, you will make more money. You will close more events. You might also be told that you're annoying or that people get too many emails from you, and that's okay. That's just part of it. But if you follow up more powerfully from all angles, you will make more money.
I've talked a little bit about the sacrifice or the price for the resource of attention. And I would like to add that the core sacrifice for success is the thoughts and opinions of unsuccessful people. They're always going to tell you that you're climbing too high and that you're pushing too hard and that you're too expensive and you're too pushy and you send too many emails, and they get to keep that. Listen, guys, this has been an awesome episode. I appreciate you all hanging out with us so much. Follow up until you can't follow up, till your fingers fall off from all the money that you're counting. Follow up, follow up, follow up. Be powerful. Don't be a bully. Don't harass people, but know where your boundaries end and begin, and hold your seat of power throughout all conversations. And you'll watch not only your business transform, but your life transform. We hope to see you guys on the next one.
And that wraps up today's episode. I hope it was valuable. I would love to hear from you what you thought. You can drop me a line at hello@mobilebevpros.com or find me on Instagram at mobilebevpros. If you're looking for more valuable mobile bar related content, we have a website full of it. You can find us at www.mobilebevpros.com. And I'd love to see you in our Facebook community, also by the name of, you guessed it, Mobile Bev Pros. Thank you for joining me today, and until next time, cheers.